Okay, it's time to sharpen up that chainsaw and strap it to the front of your gun because we're going to review Gears of War Ultimate Edition. The game's plot begins 14 years after Emergence Day when the Locust Horde overran and killed many COG soldiers and civilians, declaring war against humanity. Marcus Phoenix, a former COG soldier, is reinstated into the military after spending 4 years in prison for abandoning his military post in order to make an attempt to save his father, Adam Phoenix. Dominic Santiago is Marcus's best friend and fellow COG, and he extracts Phoenix from prison and takes him to meet Delta Squad. You're then looking for a device called the Resonator, a device that will map the hollow, the underground caverns within the planet which the Locusts inhabit, later enabling you to deploy a light maps bomb to try and destroy all of the Locust forces inside the hollow.
What about the other prisoners?
Now, I have to say, I didn't really know what the story was, and the game doesn't really give you a primer when you start. It just kind of drops you immediately in the game in the prison where you're being busted out. So I didn't even know that we're on another planet there for a while. Some of the story does spoil that as you go, but I would say it would have been nice if maybe there was some kind of introduction to the history of the world at the beginning, before it sort of dumped you in there and left you to figure out what was going on. I guess the disorientation works in terms of the game, but I didn't really understand the backstory when they're babbling on about the Pendulum Wars, which is, let's face it, a ridiculous name for a war. As this is the Ultimate Edition of Gears of War, maybe they assume you already knew the backstory. I hadn't played the original one, so I don't know whether it was ever better explained. But as the Ultimate Edition, it's a remaster of the original game, so everything is much more polished. The graphics are all HD, there's new textures and things. I think they've refreshed the models, and there's a lot of new animations and cutscenes, so the game looks absolutely gorgeous. I can't fault it. It's beautiful looking game. One thing I did find as when playing though is sometimes it was very hard to spot some of the things that were around, and you just needed some sort of visual cue to to sort of call out there were items on the ground like ammo and things like that. I do think in the later games they did add a bit of a flashing effect, but in the game sometimes you were sort of hunting around to figure out what you were actually looking for or what things were. Everything is very grey and brown a lot of the time, and everything does tend to sort of blend in together. So you've really got to keep your eyes peeled to spot things, especially the collectibles like the little cog necklaces. They're really damn hard to find. I know some of that is by design, but sometimes you can literally just walk around an area and walk over things and not notice them because they blend in so well with everything else. So a little call out there would help, particularly with ammo and things like that. The game does a really good job though of teaching you the mechanics from the outset. So while you do get dumped in the beginning, it's not super hard. You're not suddenly attacked by waves of enemies. It's teaching you the mechanics of the movement and things like that. And the main highlight of the game, I guess you could say, which is the cover system. So it has a really good system where you can shimmy up to an object or a barrier or a wall or whatever, and I think press X and the character will kind of lock to the wall or hide behind that wall, and you can sort of pop up over things. Moving to the extent to the edges of the wall or the cover will then give you various options to roll to the next piece of cover or whatever. So the whole thing's based around being able to hide behind things, sneak up. You've got cover to fire from behind, you've got some protection and things like that. And I have to say it's a really excellent system. It works really, really well. Occasionally it can be a little problematic if you're running. I found you can run in and sometimes get caught up on obstacles where it tries to put you into cover. Most of the time it's fine, but yeah, there's the occasional instance where you will get killed because you got locked in against something and just stuck in the wrong place at the wrong time. I did have a little bit of a problem, I think, on one level where there are a couple of trenches and you sort of have to go run across, down the trench, across, and then sort of climb out again. And because he locks to the wall, you've basically got to then smash the climb button a couple of times to say, no, I actually want to climb over the barrier. And I got shelled into oblivion on those. But the game yeah, it doesn't punish you overly. I mean, I never felt like I got set back miles or anything like that and had to retrack a lot of the game. It'll put you back a little bit. But once you're over any sort of major obstacle, it doesn't necessarily set you back behind those again, which is great. So if you get killed, you can get up and basically get going again fairly easily, and the deaths don't become too repetitious and too painful, if you know what I mean. Another function of the game that's really great is cooperative play. So when I played the game, I actually played it with Vicious Pony. He played as the main character Marcus, and I got pushed into whatever secondary character was currently part of the storyline. So largely I played Dom, I think. And you do find yourself getting attached to them, and they have some stories and they go through some evolution over the course of the game, which is kind of cool, and you do feel a bit sad for them. Sometimes it's a little hard to know what was going on. Dom had a whole through line with his girlfriend or wife or something, of which he's very broken up about. But sometimes I didn't feel quite so attached to her, I guess because you never really encounter her in the game or anything. You don't get attached to her. She's always sort of missing off screen. So narratively, that was interesting. But yeah, the characters are really cool, and you can play together cooperatively with the other player, and sometimes there's some really interesting choices in the game as well, which I like, where you come to branching paths, and it will sort of ask you to choose whether this team goes on the upper level and that team goes on the lower level, or this team goes out on the street, or this team goes through the building, and then they kind of work to support each other. So whoever's got the high ground will provide shots into the lower team, or the lower team might have to open something that unimpedes the high ground team or whatever. So I thought that was really interesting, the way that it would branch off the story and give you a little bit of choice. The game features a really good variation of environments as well. The 5 acts that comprise the main storyline have a number of different locations. Sometimes you're in a ruined city, sometimes you're deep underground, there's a refinery type level, and they break up some of the gameplay as well, sometimes with different kinds of sort of sub-games, if you like, a bit like Call of Duty, where there are some levels where you're on a vehicle and you might be repelling waves of attacking enemies that are flying in, or something like that, using the guns on an APC, or cannons on a big train, for instance. It's really good. There's a lot of variation, and it kept the game interesting. I never felt like it was really dragging. The story is really compelling, and I think we played through it in maybe 2 days. Not constantly, obviously, but yeah, it's quite a compelling game, and it is kind of hard to put it down. The game features quite a lot of weapons. There are quite a few variations, and there are also human cog weapons and locust weapons that you can pick up. The only limitation is that the character can only carry 4 things at a time, although you can switch between them if you can pick them up and drop them. But you have a primary weapon slot, a secondary weapon slot, which holds your main guns, a grenade slot, and one for a pistol, or a pistol kind of weapon. Sometimes you might take up that slot with a Hammer of Dawn. Of course, the main weapon that the game is known for in particular is the Lancer, which is sort of an assault rifle with an underbarrel chainsaw, and you can do some fairly gruesome finishes off with that by getting in close to the person and basically hacking them to pieces with the chainsaw. Although I also did some quite fun headshots and things with the sniper rifle. It's quite satisfying to take the locust heads off. I wouldn't say that the game is as gruesome as something like Doom, but it's definitely not one for the kiddies. There's no collecting gold coins and mushrooms in this game. It's more about collecting dead locust. There's also some good environmental things that you can do too, such as targeting gas tanks and things to create an area of effect detonation. I believe there was even one level where you attack the structure of the building to collapse the roof and things like that. So there are some good environmental uses, and you'll find yourself looking out when you're in particular areas to see if there's something slung from an overhead crane that you can shoot and drop on them, or a sort of compressed gas tank that you could blow up or something like that to take out a whole bunch of enemies at once. The game also features an impressive array of creatures arrayed against you, from anything from little scuttling critters that might crawl along the ground and explode or leap at you when they get too close, to huge flying things, to the absolutely massive brumacs that are heavily armored with cannons strapped to their back. Tons and tons of locust foot soldiers and flying things and stuff that tunnels under the ground and pop up. Sometimes you have to throw a grenade into a hole and basically collapse the tunnel from where they're all emerging from, or else they just keep overwhelming you wave after wave. There are also some truly massive creatures as well, including ones that I'm pretty sure you go inside of at some point. The scale of the game is just amazing. I mean, I don't know what they were smoking when they came up with this, but some of these things are just nuts. Although, if somebody who knows the game really well could explain to me what the heck is up with Queen Myra and why she doesn't look like any of the other locusts, I'd really like to understand, because she looks quite human and the rest of them are ugly, ugly, ugly creatures. I don't know whether they were trying to do a bit of a StarCraft thing there, but I don't understand that, and I don't think it ever really got explained either. They just sort of pull a swerve on the game. From what I understand, she didn't show up originally until Gears of War 2, so that is a slight change in Ultimate Edition, where she makes a bit of a brief appearance there towards the end of the game. I'm sorry if that's a spoiler for you and you haven't played the game already, but if you do know, please leave a comment below, because I'd really like to understand that one. Ultimate Edition also features the competitive multiplayer that was originally available in the game. It comes with all the original DLC maps, plus a few maps from the PC version of the game. It also has a few new game modes such as TDM and King of the Hill. Overall, I wasn't that enthused for the multiplayer. The cooperative multiplayer was more what I was interested in playing, the campaign and the story. But there is fun to be had there in the multiplayer parts of the game as well. I think there was a horde mode that we played where we were deflecting various waves of locusts, and that was a bit of fun. It was okay, but not my favourite. So overall, I have to say the game was a really fun time. I was actually surprised how much I did enjoy it. When I think I'd played the original when it first came out, I'd only ever tried the multiplayer a little bit, and I wasn't really into that, but I really enjoyed the campaign, and I think there's a lot of fun to be had in playing it with a friend, getting on there and battling your way through hordes of locusts together. Was a lot of fun, and ultimately a really hard game to put down. We were quite overjoyed when we finished it. It felt like it was an achievement. It was certainly a bit of a slog to get through, but the story was really exciting. It kept us gripped, it kept us interested, and you actually found yourselves becoming attached to some of the characters in the end. Coltrane, of course, was a particular favourite. And of course, we particularly enjoyed the Carmines, the running red shirt gag of this series. Play spot the Carmine and see how long he lasts before he gets shot in the head or killed, which is ironic because he's wearing a helmet. I highly recommend you check out Gears of War Ultimate Edition. If you haven't already, it's available on the Game Pass. You can just click download. Otherwise, it's well worth purchasing and playing. And if you have played it before, dust it off and go again, because I think it's a really good game, and I'm pretty sure we'll end up playing it again at some point. As always, if you enjoyed the review and you found the video interesting, please click the subscribe button and feel free to leave any comments below, and I'll see you for the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.
And I thought the food in prison smelled bad.